What's up, guys? Welcome back. As part of my long ongoing journey of fully understanding RC drift mechanical settings and tuning and electronics and yada yada yada, I have been deeply exploring the world of front alignment, and I've been delving into the main archetypes of different front alignment settings to explore how they feel, how they affect the car's handling, strengths and weaknesses, and ultimately what my personal preference is. Because you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what you like until you try it. So I've been trying it all, and in this video I'm just going to be sharing some of my findings. So the car here on your right is my first car that I built, and it's my RMX 2.5. We've just got turnbuckles, TDA shocks, and a differential in it. So it's pretty much just a, standard RMX 2.5, mildly hopped up. In this car, we have the classic, or at least classic to me, high caster and relatively high camber front alignment. This is a very classic beginner alignment. It's the recommended alignment that you see when you look at things up on the internet. You go like 7 to 9 degrees of camber, similar amounts of caster. That gives you a flat contact patch at about 45 degrees of steering lock, and it makes for a pretty nice feeling car. That's like your standard alignment, right? Like pretty typical alignment, nothing too crazy. Maxing out the caster on these MSTs is not that much caster. I mean, it's probably 15 degrees of caster, but it's not like, as much as you could get out of a Yokomo. You could get like 40 degrees of caster out of a Yokomo. Anyway, I'm getting a little off track anyway. I just want to talk about alignment archetypes. So we can see this lead tire flat at about 45 degrees. That's like one of the first things to consider about a front alignment, and sort of what type of alignment is it. Like, you have alignments that aim for a flat contact patch at drift angle. You have alignments that aim for a flat contact patch at full lock. And like this car, there's alignments that have a flat contact patch through the entire sweep. So staying focused. Standard type of alignment with camber, caster, flat contact patch here, and the tire being on edge in some way or another through the rest of the sweep. The way that car is going to feel is it's going to have a light feeling in the steering. It's going to have a very soft front end. It's going to have a light steering feel. You're not going to get a ton of response out of the front, which it's kind of a good thing. If you're a little heavy on the steering inputs, it will dampen those inputs a little bit and help keep the car stable. So this front setup gives for a car that tends to understeer. You're going to be driving it more through the rear. You're going to be controlling the car with the throttle more, and then just kind of giving suggestions with the front is kind of how this alignment feels. And that's most people's preference. It's an easier car to drive if you're a beginner because it kind of simplifies the inputs. You're focusing mostly on one single variable rather than having to cross balance two variables between the steering and the throttle. It just makes it more focused on the throttle. But in any case, honestly, if I'm being honest, this is probably, while I'm on this exploration path of trying all the alignments, this is probably the one I'm going to come back to, this style of alignment. Another style of alignment, though, like I said, is the one that keeps a flat contact patch through the entire steering sweep. This has been my recent experiment with my SD3 LE here, and I basically have been calling this the zero setup because we have zero camber, zero caster. See, there's no caster. See, the upper and lower control arms are directly on top of each other. No caster, no camber, Very little toe. Very little toe. We have good Ackermann. Minimal bump steer. The key to this is this trail knuckle. We have the trail setting maxed out. Oops. Trail setting is maxed out, and I believe it gives about 3 mil of trail. You can see there on that. That's the SD3 limited edition comp knuckle there. So the Zero-Spec with max trail, we're getting a flat patch through the entire sweep. And this is the strongest feeling front end I've ever felt on this car. You know, these modern day drift cars are so heavily biased with weight towards the rear. They're all about shifting weight backwards, putting weight over the axle, and they all have a tendency to understeer. And without changing the center of mass, this front alignment setup gives the car a feeling of having more front weight, front grip. So it's quite interesting. It is probably more of an advanced setting, I feel, because it punishes poor steering inputs and it exposes the mistakes in your steering a little more. It just amplifies them a little more. But this gives you a very, very sharp front end feel. And what that's nice for is if you are good at running low gyro gain and you like a very aggressive, hard flicking car that rotates extremely fast, I think this is probably the best alignment setup for that, for getting your car to just rotate, to swing, to just be insanely quick in transition, hard flick into entry, and it also catches angle really nicely. But it comes at the cost of, like I said, it's a little bit touchier, it's a little bit twitchier. Your front end's going to dart around a little bit more in response to your steering, so you got to be dead nuts on with your steering. However, I do think over time, if I get used to driving this way, it's going to cause me to become a more accurate driver. You know, that's kind of my current working theory. I've only been using this kind of setup for a few days. Oh my gosh, my motion sensitive lights just went out. Turn back on. I've only been using this setup for a few days and I haven't gotten quite used to it yet to where I was comfortable, to where I'm like fully comfortable with it, but it's pretty dang good. So this is the second archetype of front alignments, Zero-Spec, where you have the tire flat all the time, no camber, no caster, minimal toe, just enough toe to get your Ackermann right, which is parallel Ackermann, just full parallel with slightly open at full lock. That's about what we go for. So that's one extreme end of the spectrum, and I don't have a demonstration car available to show you, but the final extreme is cars that three wheel. So if you imagine, say we flipped this arm over and got max caster, put all the spacers to shove the lower arm forward, put all the spacers to shove the upper arm backwards, flip the upper arm, max out the caster. What you'll get is a tire that at full lock is so tilted over that it'll actually lift the trailing tire, and you can get a car that three wheels. That's kind of like the third main archetype. Like this is kind of like a middle spec car. This is one extreme end of the spectrum, and then your three-wheeling type cars is the other extreme end of the spectrum. And the three-wheeling type cars are just going to be kind of an even more extreme version, or more extreme feeling version of the middle spec, where it's going to be very soft feeling. It's going to feel very rear heavy, and that's because a car that three wheels, well, it lifting weight off of that third tire, that weight goes somewhere. It goes backwards. So you end up with more weight over the rear on a car that has more caster and more jacking. You know, the more this tire lifts onto an edge, the more it picks up the whole car and puts weight back. So cars with no camber, no caster have zero jacking, and then cars with all the camber and all the caster would have all of the jacking. And so it's like, how much weight do you want front and back? You know, this is like in the middle. Your three-wheeling cars are on the far end extreme. We want all the weight in the back. And then these zero-spec cars with very low amounts of camber and caster, they keep the weight, you know, they're not shifting weight forward and back as you steer at all. So, yeah, I just realized I've been talking for like 10 minutes. Just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about the archetypes of front alignment and the different setups that I've explored and how they felt. So hopefully this helps you in your RC drifting journey. Let me know which kind of archetype you have a preference for. You know, do you like kind of middle spec, zero spec, or like three-wheel spec? You know, how do you like your car to feel? Thanks for watching. Have a great day.